All right, y'all, this is James, Quantum Mechanic. Today we're doing a van tour, not the toolbox, just the van. So I'll come around back and I'll show you guys how we have it set up. This is my commonly used stuff. So I got this tree here for pretty much things I use on a daily basis. Fluids, scissors, rags, stuff like that. Trash can, my 90% box. If you haven't seen the video, check that out. My Daytona 2-ton aluminum jack. Ramps, pretty commonly used stuff. The umbrella, the cart, and the toolbox come out for pretty much every job. And then that gives me better access to the inside of the van. But sometimes I can back up straight to the vehicle and I can just pop that open and do what I need to do straight from here. So that's a really big game changer. All right, so this is a typical setup. If you guys have seen me, I put this cart on the side here. So this is my go-to cart. I upgraded to metal bands to keep this in place with PVC. That's for the umbrella. That's a game changer. Got my tools, parts, and such of the nature. I keep my torque wrench and everything in there. So that's that. This is my commonly used diagnostics side. So we'll get into this. This is my most used, like blow molded cases. We'll talk about that. And then these are parts, spare parts, and consumables. We'll talk about that too. All right, so right here, these are all my fluids. I have a video on the type of fluids that I have. Check that out. Scissors for opening up packages. I like to have a nice clean clay. I don't know why. These are going to be my batteries. These are fully charged batteries. My dead batteries go down here. I've started using 1/4-inch impact a lot more. So really I'm checking out some Capri sockets. So you guys check that video out. This jump starter I use all the time because oftentimes customer calls, car won't start, and it's a dead battery. It happens all the time. Small little trash can. I like to use these microfiber rags. I'll talk about that. Miscellaneous stuff, brushes, tape. This is like my catch-all bucket. I got some spare nuts and bolts down here, not much. Plug tires, stuff like that. All right, these are going to be my lug nut sockets with the plastic coating on it. Right, so that's cool. That's a good one. My go-to large impact is right here. And just some Moxnix things that I need to move around. A combustion leak check for head gasket failure, right? So that's there. I also keep my Icon torque wrench. I use this. I torque down every single lug nut, so that lives there. All right, on this door, I just have zip ties and a brush to kind of clean off the area. I don't want to overload that door too much. This is my go-to flashlight. I love that thing. My jack stand. If you're going to be underneath the car with jacks, you got to have jack stands. Wheel chocks. These are my favorite ramps. I got to have ramps when you're working on a car, even just to lift it up, even if you're not getting underneath it, helps save your back. My fan, these are the hooks that hold my umbrella, extra gloves up there, lamp, and rags, right? Pretty straightforward. This hook right here is what keeps my cart in place, that with these bungee cords, okay? Also, I have my brake bag here. You guys have heard me talk about this. It's changed a little bit since you saw it last, but it's pretty much all the same. Bucket, that's for coolant. And then I have my jack here. All right, so this is inside the van. We'll go through this side, and then we'll go through this side, and then the back corner over here. This is a U.S. General toolbox on top here. I'll do a tour of the whole box here if you guys want to check that out. But I'm going to tour this right now. This is on the back side of the toolbox, and it is kind of lipped in place, so this does hold really well. So let's get into it. So up here, this is like my oil change stuff. This is used oil, my oil catch, and then this is a collapsible crate. I use this to transfer parts because I have parts delivered to the house. So this is what I use to tote parts from basically my front door to the backyard where I keep the van. This is an electrical diagnostic bag. Anytime I have an advanced diagnostic I need to get taken care of, parasitic draw, short, something like that, this comes out. It's really handy to have everything all in one place. Have a little extra pocket scanner there too. So really like having that. Here I have a smoke machine. So all the accoutrements that come with the smoke machine, that's right there. Here's and this is all on this shelf here. These are swivel sockets from Gear Wrench. Those are pretty nice. This is a fuel pressure tester. Excuse me. This is a seal driver kit right there. This is going to be our torque sticks, which I've only just recently started using. I'm not a huge fan of torque sticks, which is why I still torque everything down, but it gets me close enough. And then this is going to be my compression tester from Maddox. Really good kit there. Coming down, like I said, I like these rags here. These are going to be these are from Costco. I have the Sam's Club back there. They're basically the exact same thing. I also have a mat down here. This is just to prevent me from laying down on grass or rocks or gravel, and also helps to absorb any oil that might fall down during some kind of service. I also have this mat here for basically the exact same reason. All right, so here I'm gonna have my oil change filter kit. I don't use this thing a ton, I just got a cheap one. And I forgot to add this on a previous video for coolant work, but this is gonna be all my fittings and adapters for filling coolant systems. Down here, this is the slippery Pete brake bleeder. This is the one-man brake bleeding kit. You couple this with this, and it pressurizes the master cylinder reservoir, and you hand pump it, so you don't have to have a compressor. So that's really nice. Over here, I've talked about this in another video as well. This is the coolant pressure tester kit. Really got to have one of those if you're doing any kind of professional coolant work. This is an adapter kit for it, kind of like a end-all be-all type thing. R134 refrigerant, I prefer the cans over the large can. It's easier to carry, less DOT restrictions, and it's just so much easier. Down here, I just have a 1.5 ton aluminum jack. The aluminum jack is really for when I'm doing suspension work, right? So I've talked about that before, to manipulate engines or control arms or something like that. So that's that. I also like to keep an evacuation unit here, an extra jack right over here, some more rags. This is, I was using the Snap-on, but I switched over to Icon, and I actually kind of like it better than the Snap-on one, so I'm trying to sell the Snap-on one I have. So that's for R134, and then I have my 3-ton jack for basically those lifted trucks and such of that nature. That's pretty much everything here. This is pretty commonly used stuff. All right, flip it on over here to this side. This is where these are the grade 9 metric nuts and bolts. I've talked about this too. These are my hoses and assortment of clips and such of that nature. Body clips from Harbor Freight. These, I go through these all the time, so anytime there's a deal, I grab a bunch. Funnels and bungee cords. I have, I've done a video kind of like this on Consumables, but I have this cap and rubber plug set that's really good for doing classic cars. Hose clamps, different assortment of hose clamps, O-rings, nothing really new here. This is just like an assortment of, you know, nuts, bolts, hex head screws, Allen head screws, you know, Zerk fittings, nothing crazy. This is like a smaller consumables. So I have extra battery terminals on here. I have K95s masks, some epoxy. I have some RTV, some razor blades, stuff like that. Anytime I buy something consumable, I want to put it in here so that way I don't buy doubles of it. I've done that so many times. This is my map gas and torch. And then this is like heavy duty suspension type stuff that doesn't fit anywhere else. Pitman pullers, you know, little stuff like that. Nothing too crazy. I don't really like getting to that too much. All right, so this shelf here is going to be mostly carburetors and classic cars. So everything over here is going to be, so I got carburetor repeal kit ready to go. I got accelerator pumps, fuel pumps, some riser kits for carburetors and air intakes and stuff like that. Just extra Moxnick stuff. These are for the GMs, those evap solenoids. Those are really useful. They break all the time. Metering valve and jets. I have like 3 or 4 sets of these. This one's from Jegs. I got a bunch more. These are carburetor parts and used carburetor parts, unused and used. Rebuild kit. And then this is just in-service tool parts. So, you know, gaskets, little stuff that I can fit up here into this box here. Camshaft sensor. You know, I always like to do what I can to get the OEM stuff, but sometimes the customer can't afford it. So this is an intake manifold for a 2.0 VW. Anyway. And then this is my generic catch can for when I don't want to bust out the big catch can, or it's going to be a small amount of fluid. I don't want to make a mess. All right, like I said, you guys have seen this bag before. All right, so let's move on. Let's start in the back and work our way out. That's my coolant catch can. I like that one, and it only is for coolant. I don't want to mix it up with oil, so that way the oil and coolant doesn't kind of mix together. Here I have some consumable fluids. I like overflow, so when I'm empty where I normally use the fluid, like my brake fluid or my WD-40 or whatever, I can come back here and refill it. So that's extra useful. Up here on a hook, I just have an extension cord, a really thick one, and jumper cables. This is my 1234YF. Same again thing from Icon. Another fold-up cart, which I absolutely love. And then I have my used refrigerant for R134 and 1234YF down there. And then also that's kitty litter for any time I might have an oil leak. All right, so we're just going to go through this one real quickly. I'm not going to open these up. I've done some videos on these before. These are the like universal wheel locks. So that's this is for VWs and Audis, the one on the bottom, the blue one. And then this is for the external like stars, you know, weirdly shaped ones. This one's going to be our brake caliper. I absolutely hate this kit, but I don't get into it too much, so that's why it's there. This is just kind of, didn't really have anywhere else to build it. Pulley remover and installer, that's for like power steering pump pulleys and stuff like that. I think I have a video on using that one as well. Extra vacuum gauge, can't have too many of those. I talked about this before. This is for doing dwell. This is a parasitic draw and pound. And then I have a really cheap standard tap and die set down there. All right, so in this drawer, I have my brake tubing and flaring kit. I don't do hard lines on brakes anymore because it's just not worth it for me from work, money, and a liability standpoint. And then this is the Blue Point. I actually picked this one up pretty recently. This is all the Torx and hex and star bit set. So this is really nice. Really comes in handy. I've already taken all the ones I need or that I use on a regular basis and put in my toolbox. All right, and then the last drawer down here, this is like cheap pulleys. I have a cheap little vacuum pump. Nothing to write home about in there, just large miscellaneous things. Okay, so on the top here, these are my money makers. This is my refrigerant recovery machines, evacuation recovery machines, and then my vacuum pump. So this is for R134, that's for 1234YF. Like I said, that's the vacuum pump. This is going to be all of my refrigerant fittings. So it's basically just Moxnix fittings I've gotten from doing like compressor jobs and stuff like that. I have extra hoses, filters. This is how I measure in and install the new fluids. Compressor oil. So just a really, really good kit. It's a cheap one, but I can just grab and go. And then the next thing is you want your refrigerant to be charged in by weight. So I have a nice scale right here. All right, so this is going to be my 1234YF corner. So this refrigerant and the oil associated with it, and then some partially used cans. I use these transfer pumps for a number of reasons, either putting fluid into or evacuating fluid out of like the rear differential. That it's also good for pumping fluid into like those Mercedes transmissions that don't have a fill port, which blows my mind still. I did a little video on this as well. This is the retaining ring plier set, just in case you guys want to see it. It looks something like that. All right, let's move down here. These are more consumable fluids. So once again, I have brake fluid, brake cleaner, carb cleaner, extra brake fluid, motor flush, water, just Moxnix thing, power steering fluid. I try not to carry coolant on board. I've talked to you guys about that, but this is a universal coolant for those older cars. I have extra fuel back here in the back, and then the M18 vacuum cleaner. And then here, I'm going to have all of my extra zip ties. All right, so on this shelf here, I have a slide hammer. This is specifically for pulling out CV axles. So it's got the adapters and stuff like that. The next time I do a difficult CV axle, I'll do a video on all the different ways to pull that out. These are the snap ring pliers, super useful when doing upper and lower ball joints. This is a wheel bearing press from Maddox. This thing is fantastic. Another slide hammer. This is for like wheel bearings and just pretty much anything you can think of. And then a fan clutch, a pneumatic fan clutch. Even though I don't keep an air compressor, like I said, I'll still hook it up and use a hammer when I need to get those fan clutches. But I don't use it a lot anymore. All right, let's see what's on this shelf. All right, so here's everything that lives on this shelf and these two totes down here. So first and foremost, this is going to be like a suspension service kit. This is really good. You got pitman idler arms, ball joints, tie rods, stuff like that. Really good. This is going to be a bearing separator. Obviously, you don't have to use it for just bearings, but this is a really good kit as well. Most of this stuff is from Pittsburgh Harbor Freight because it's really nice stuff, really good, affordable. McPherson Struck compressor kit. I hate doing those, but I have it just in case. This is going to be my old ball joint service kit, an add-on kit. So this is, I keep it for just in case. I have a better one, which I'll show you guys in a second. But those two live in that crate, and everything else lives in this. These are just, cheap Home Depot crates. And then this is the grease gun that I like to use. Just something big, easy, and reliable. All right, so now we're here on the top part of my hutch. This is going to be my absolute favorite, and I've done a video on this before. This is for upper and lower ball joints. This is from Icon. This thing is great. This is for major electrical repair, so I have solder, shrink wrap, and wiring of assorted sizes in there. And then this is going to be a harmonic balancer and puller. I did a short on that if you guys want to check it out. But yeah, I don't want to go through this whole toolbox. I just wanted to show you guys those things because they kind of should live in the back of the toolbox. And then I have some blow molded cases that I keep in here because it's kind of hard to get to from the ground. And then the rest of the toolbox, which we'll talk about on another day. All right, guys. So thanks so much for watching. This is a huge improvement from the last van. I have this one set up specifically. I could have moved this toolbox a little bit closer this way, but I wanted to be able to access the van and get inside of it like this. So lucky for me, I'm kind of skinny and I can fit through that little hole there. But that's how I have it set up. So, all right, guys, let me know. I might put some more storage up here along the walls on the side here. But let me know what you guys think. How can I improve this? And yeah, guys, I super appreciate you guys for watching. The last video did really well. I'll do another video on that. I'll do another video, update video on my 90% box. And I'll do some more tool review videos. And I also want to do some more advice to the young techs, like how to get started, how much money to spend, where to spend your money, stuff like that. Just some advice from an old timer, I guess. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.